I'm Ken Bowersox.
With a bit more of who you were and what you have as.
And this is Charlie Walker.
Moving right there we go.
We both went to Bedford High School. I went to school here in Bedford, junior high and high school, set my career goals while I was here in Lawrence County, and left, joined the Navy, became a NASA astronaut, flew a bunch of times on the space shuttle and on the International Space Station on my last flight. And now I'm still in the space exploration business, working for a company called SpaceX that's trying to build a commercial spacecraft to carry passengers into space.
As Ken says, we both went to Bedford High School, and then I went on to Purdue University. A couple of jobs in aerospace industry. One was one that particularly made my future, so to speak, in this regard, with the McDonnell Douglas Corporation in St. Louis, who had a project that had a commercial aim, but the commercial objective of the project required access to space, research to be done in space. And the space shuttle was really the only effective way to do long-term research in space at the time. In the early 1980s, my company was so bold as to think they'd like to try to get an engineer to accompany the research. I had my hand in the air in my management's office saying, look, if this ever does go to space, I'd like to get a chance to do that. So I managed to get an opportunity to train with the professional astronauts and then accompany 3 different crews aboard space shuttles to do research in space. What was going on in my head was a lot of, first of all, second by second, as the countdown progressed, I was going through my training. I mean, I was kind of remembering now this, then this, and if this happens, then the other thing, and then keep your eyes focused on this and your head focused on this. And I was just flying as a passenger. I wasn't upstairs on the flight deck in the front 2 seats with real responsibility for the mission. I was just a passenger. That's the mission-oriented stuff. There was also going through my head like, and I admit this freely, you know, that when I'd take a breath and thinking through the procedures, I'd thinking through what's about to happen, going through the checklist, so to speak. I'd take a breath and I'd suddenly ask myself, do you really want to be here on top of 4 million pounds of high explosive doing this? It just seemed to me the rational question to at least ask oneself one again. But within a fraction of a second, well, no, the answer to the simple question is, you're here because you want to be. You have been asked this and asked yourself this question many times in training, and you've decided this is what you want to do. So stiff upper lip, swallow hard, you're going to go do it, and you're going to do it right.
My biggest fear was that I was going to get pulled off a mission, that I wouldn't get to go. So while you're there on the launch pad, you're generally trying to concentrate, make sure you don't make an error. And then once the engine's light, there's this tremendous relief because you can do anything now and they can't take you off the mission.
Take you out of the cockpit now.
It is not possible anymore to remove you from a flight. And so you're going along for the ride, and that's a really wonderful feeling. And for the most part, folks focus on the task. In fact, I would have to tell myself, make sure you look around at least a little bit, because this is one of the few chances you're going to get in your life to sense these sets of sensations. So I'd be looking at displays and going through all my different panels, all of my little jobs that I had to do on the way up, and then just for a second I'd look up out the window and watch the Earth changing, watch the light changing. On one flight we had the sun up in front of us, and we got to see it rise there out the front window of the orbiter. And you go, wow, that's great. And then you look right back to the displays and back to work. Some guys don't even look up. You know, I wasn't that good. But then I knew they couldn't take me off the flight. So it's great. You know,
From a certain point of view.
It just depends. You know, if you're more worried about the food than the view, then space probably isn't going to be the right place for you. But if you be happy with a cold hot dog or a bologna sandwich on the rim of the Grand Canyon, soaking in the sunrise, then you know what I'm talking about.
Well, first of all, you're going to space, and if you want to go to a restaurant for a fine meal, there's other destinations than up there just because you got other things to do in space. So you really want to minimize the amount of time in preparing and eating a meal. There's virtually no refrigeration. On the early shuttle flights, there was no refrigeration. What little fresh food was put on board, like fruit, had to be eaten within the first couple of days of a flight. And so then you have, yes, the freeze-dried, the MREs, the ready-to-eat meals for the most part.
It's amazing what you can do with a can of stew and a bottle of Tabasco sauce. First of all, I'd like to point out that never happened to me. I never lost anything on a spacewalk. But if it does happen, the best thing is sort of wave by and let it go. You might be tempted to jump and grab it or something like that, but what typically happens is it floats away from wherever you are. Even though you're in space, there's still a little bit of atmosphere up there, and it will gradually slow that object down. It'll fall back into the atmosphere and burn up before it hits the ground. Yeah, I took little things on every flight. You're allowed to take what they call a personal preference kit. That's a history that goes back to the very first astronauts. 20 or so items in a little bag, not more than 2 pounds. Plus you got to carry 2 or 3 different objects for schools or public organizations that you might want to give back to them after you finish the flight. But you know, there's all kinds of little mementos in those bags. I don't know, what did you carry, Charlie? You remember?
On one flight, I took along some tree seeds that the U.S. Forest Service, who I'd worked for a short period of time, had selected for me, as they were very resistant to thermal changes in seed form and even radiation to some extent. That would be grown when it came back. So there are seeds around this town, around
They're
Bedford.
planted around here somewhere? Space trees?
Space trees, one outside the Bedford Library, as a matter of fact,
Yeah,
and then several
that's
up in at Purdue University as well.
You know, there's a lot of answers to that question. And the number one requirement is that you want to be an astronaut. Number two, I would tell a young person today that it helps to find a profession that you're passionate about, so that passion will drive the hard work that's required to be excellent in that field. So here I am in the Bedford Library laying out my life plan at Bedford Junior High School Library. You know, I need to go to the Naval Academy because that's where they have the most astronauts. And then Purdue would be second.
There's a division between the military and the private and the civilian sector, you know, so one and the other.
And so I figured, well, I'll go to the Naval Academy, and Purdue was going to be my backup school because I did know that was a great place to go. It's a great school.